Warner Brothers Movie World used to be very good, but in the last few years I've noticed a growing sentiment in the community that the park is now falling from those once high standards. There's a lack of upkeep, subpar investments, money pinching, closed rides, bad operations, the list goes on. As a big fan of the park who's been visiting since the late 90s, I've thought I'd give my view on the situation and what can be done to fix it. Now a quick disclaimer, as I know some of you may take this video the wrong way, but I love Movie World and these criticisms are coming from a place of care. You know, I really want to see the park succeed and not fail. The park does do a lot of things right, but we're here today to address the things it does wrong, which is sadly in the majority in my opinion at the moment. Now first, a bit of my history with Movie World so you all know where I'm coming from. I first visited the park in the late 90s on a family holiday during my first ever trip to Australia. We all absolutely loved it, and considering my local theme park at the time was pretty much Disneyland Paris, this was high praise indeed. Movie World back then was more of a theme park, you know? It had fantastic theming, immersive areas, and an amazing atmosphere, all based on the classic idea of Hollywood movie making magic. There weren't many rides per se back then, but it did have a lot of attractions, and pretty much all of them could be enjoyed by the entire family. Not to say it didn't have rides, it did, you know, classics like Looney Tunes River Ride, Batman the Ride, and the Gremlins Adventure. These were all highly themed, immersive, and for the time, genuinely world class. Looney Tunes in particular is still impressive today for what it pulled off. Like, look at this. Nowadays though, it's a slightly different story. The park is now more akin to a Six Flags park you can find in the USA. You know, a basic amusement park with unthemed thrill rides everywhere. I'm not saying they shouldn't have thrill rides, but right now the park is very focused in that direction, at the expense of other types of attractions. What non-roller coaster attractions does Movie World have today? There's Justice League, a subpar and clunky interactive dark ride, Wild West Falls, a once world-class ride that has aged like warm milk, and the Hollywood Stunt Driver Show, which might be the worst stunt show in theme park history, at least in its current state. What did Movie World have back in the day? There's the Looney Tunes River Ride, the Studio Tour, Batman the Ride, Gremlins, which then became the fantastic Scooby-Doo Spooky Coaster, the best version of Wild West Falls. There was walk-through attractions like the Harry Potter Movie Magic Experience, the Maverick Life Show, and the incredible Police Academy Stunt Show. Yes, Movie World today has a much better roller coaster selection, but the lack of quality family rides and attractions is extremely noticeable. Back then, the whole family could enjoy nearly every attraction, but now it's not uncommon for parents or non-thrill seekers to just sit around, bored out of their minds while they wait for their loved ones to ride the coasters. I go to the park frequently and I see this all the time, you know, there's adults sleeping, reading, working on their laptops, they're just, you know, not taking part in the fun. The overall vibe has changed too. There used to be more intricate themed areas with classic movie music playing throughout the park. It felt immersive. There used to be more characters, but now it's mostly DC characters and a handful of the Looney Tunes. Staff members even had unique costumes depending on the area, but now they have generic, all-in-one uniforms used throughout the entire park. The park now, during their annual Hooray for Hollywood event, is basically how it used to be every day, in terms of vibe and characters. I'd also up the parade a bit. I mean, look at these clips from the parade back in 1995. You know, it had lots of varied characters, more parade floats. It seemed like a bigger, more varied event, but now it's just a few DC characters, maybe 3 Looney Tunes, and Scooby-Doo. This is the next aspect in how I'd fix the park. Make it more like how it used to be, a classic, timeless themed movie park. I want my older family members to be able to enjoy themselves too, you know, instead of just sitting there like weirdos. Instead of focusing almost entirely on roller coasters, the park should offer a full range of experiences. You know, coasters and flat rides for thrill seekers, with immersive dark rides, high quality live shows, and themed walkthroughs for everyone else. It should be like Disney or Universal, which strike a good balance in my opinion. This is what the park was created to be like. It wasn't made to be the thrill capital of Australia.
Warner Brothers, Movie World, Hollywood on the Gold Coast.
I know some people actually like the current version of Movie World when it comes to the ride lineup, and as a roller coaster enthusiast I do get it, but I'm also a theme park enthusiast and I realised the park really needs to be better balanced. Theming is another big factor. Movie World's one roller coaster back in the day was a Vekoma SLC called Lethal Weapon. While the coaster itself was the theming was top notch. You walked down an alleyway themed to Chinatown, which then transitioned into an industrial cityscape. It was immersive and very detailed. My family back then all hated roller coasters, but we still enjoyed exploring the area and appreciating the theming. Now, does Superman Escapes area have this level of theming? Nope. Does DC Rivals? Nope. It just has a shaded seating area with some cheap 2D cutouts of DC characters throughout the queue. Why couldn't this be themed to Gotham City or something? At least DC Rivals has both shade and seating, unlike the recent Wizard of Oz Land, which still doesn't as of recording. Wizard of Oz Land, which opened in late 2024, does have some genuinely good theming, don't get me wrong, but it has a lot more bad theming. Why are the walls so plain? Why does it look like a prison? Why is the ride station so different from the concept art? Enough about Oz, I made a whole video reviewing that land if you want to check that out later. So yeah, I think it's important to make the park a more themed, balanced overall experience. Instead of just roller coasters, we should have a mix of coasters, dark rides, live shows, and walkthroughs. Theming should take a lot more precedence. We should have rides that impress international visitors, just as much as they impressed me back during my first visit. Next, improve the operations. Movie World is infamous for its slow, long wait times, with queues often far longer than expected compared to other parks. It's not uncommon for bigger coasters to have over 5-minute dispatches between trains when it should be around 2 minutes. This all adds up to much longer waits. It's even worse when they run just one train on busy days. This is why DC Rivals can easily hit a 2-hour plus queue in the summer, when at a well-run park it would probably be half that or less. Ride effects shouldn't always be broken either. Wild West Falls has been a mess for years with multiple effects not working. Justice League frequently has similar problems. Just check the comments on this POV video from when an American theme park channel visited a few years ago. The ride coincidentally closed a day or two after the video was posted, and eventually most of the effects were fixed, to their credit. Are they operational now? Well, when I rode it recently, a lot were broken again. Rides breaking down and being closed has come up a lot in conversations recently. Now, for many of these instances, it's not the park's fault, and they, shouldn't be criticized in this respect. Sometimes rides break down, and that's normal. Sometimes they have to close due to the weather. Sometimes it's because a guest drops their phone on the ride. This is all normal and expected. However, a lot of the time, these closures happen alongside rides that are simply, closed for no clear reason, often to save money. It's not a good look when the understandable closures line up with the questionable ones, and because Movie World has a relatively small number of rides, you can easily end up in situations where 80% of them are closed. Will Movie World offer a refund in that situation? From what I've heard, no. Will they lower the ticket price when most of the rides are down? Nope. You'll pay the exact same price, even if barely anything is open. I'd love to see a more flexible ticketing option for these situations, Park upkeep is another issue. While the park does well in some areas, for example, the gardening or horticulture is actually pretty good, other areas are awful. It's not uncommon to see buildings and theming literally falling apart and sitting there unaddressed. They really don't like Gotham City here in Gotham City. Like, why does the Studio Showcase still have the Batman Legacy board when the attraction closed nearly 2 years ago? It should have been removed the very next day. What is the park doing with this showcase anyway? It's just been sitting there empty, looking more and more abandoned. Well, I don't know, they haven't said. What's happening to the DC Villains area? The now removed and infamous Doomsday Destroyer was left in a terrible state for years, running in a weird B mode at the end of its life and constantly breaking down. While they removed the ride earlier this year, nothing has been said about the Villains Land since. It's just been left there to rot, with theming getting removed, sound effects getting turned off, effects not working. It's just so ugly. And then there's the park's heavy focus on squeezing money out of guests. Now, I know that's the point of business, making money, but Movie World does it in ways that directly harm the guest experience, in my opinion, giving precedence to short-term profits and ignoring potential ramifications to future profits. Focusing more on premium editions. Should it really cost $25 to get a photo with Batman? Should you have such a massive focus on carnival games throughout the park? Why was one of your investments recently an arcade on a spot that really should have had a ride in an area that desperately needs it? There's also the little they actually invest in. There's the cheap 2D ride signs, they let the theming decay, they don't fix the effects, they leave areas empty after removing rides, and they don't invest in basic amenities like shade or seating. That's another big suggestion of mine. Add new investments that actually improve the guest experience, even if they reduce short-term profit. Think long-term. Don't skip out on, putting benches in your new themed area. It's the little things like that that all add up and shape a guest's experience. If you keep cutting these corners, people will leave with a meh impression and won't come back, which means less revenue in the future. Just look at the bad reviews on Google, there's tons of them. This isn't what you want potential guests to see when they look at ways to spend their hard-earned money, especially nowadays. How many guests have left Movie World telling friends they had an awful day because there was no shade, no seating? Would those friends visit? Probably not. Would they visit after hearing about the boring 2-hour wait for a ride with no effects working? Probably not. Would they visit after walking around an abandoned-looking area with no upkeep and closed rides everywhere in sight? Probably not. Invest in the little things that give indirect returns. Make a good, consistent product and guests will keep coming back. It won't be a once and done. Don't focus on trying to squeeze as much as you can from someone's only visit. Do what you can to make sure they return and spread the good word about the park, just like my family did after our first ever visit. We made sure to return to the Gold Coast as soon as we could because we had such a good time at the parks, and this honestly led to a chain of events which led us to Australia properly, and here I am today. In a weird way, Movie World is indirectly part of why I'm in Australia now. Would it be that way if the park was in its 2025 state back in 1997? So yeah, in short, look after the little things. Have a more balanced ride lineup, improve ride and park operations, fix and maintain theming. Don't skimp out on the small but important details like effects, shade, seating, and customer satisfaction. Focus on the bigger picture, not maximizing short-term revenue. After all, perfection is lots of little things done well. None of this should be that hard in the grand scheme of things. I know the park can do it. I've loved Movie World for years, and that's why I'm speaking up, because I know it can be that world-class park again. Anyway, those are just some things from the top of my head that I think could drastically improve the park. I'm sure there's more, I often forget about stuff, so what do you think could help the park? What have I missed? Do you agree with me or disagree? I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm really hoping this video helps in some way, even if small. A big thank you to my YouTube members, the Ogre Bros and the Ogre Sisters, for your kind support. A big thank you to Straws, SW Stevie1, Artie Husky, Matt Jonas, Anti Ferry, TV, Reese is a Bomb, Driston, Randall, Movies Like Everyone, I Liam's Law, Jack W, Kerry Jekyll, Koala75, Mr. Yum Yum, Ches FS, Audrey Allen, Johnny Boy 175, Craig Head, Ashton, Senpai's JP Blue Dog, Skiddy Townos, Jacqueline Bees, Senpai's JP Red Dog, Gaming with Nicholas, Monkey in a Tree, and Sudden Someone. Thank you all for your support. It really means a lot to me and I do appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Please consider watching another of my videos. Be sure to see you there. Have a great rest of your day. Ogreing out! Actually, the real way to improve Movie World is to replace every ride with a motor coaster. This would make it the perfect theme park.